Sorry, opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Public forum?
And she had Mr. Westendorf?
Yeah.
All right, you're up.
Oh, great.
Sir.
Thanks. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me tonight. Kind of the reason why I'm here is to present a proposal to renovate the interior of the, I believe it's well number 3 or the Highway 61 standpipe. So just kind of wanted to review kind of how I got here and kind of how we got to where we are, and then go over the proposal. I thought we could discuss that in a little detail. You know, what we're doing, why, that sort of thing, and then go over some questions that anybody might have. So, one thing I just thought I'd start out with is just a little overview of who I am. I don't know if any of you guys besides Dennis are familiar with Utility Service Group. But Utility Service Group, we are a tank maintenance company, actually an asset management company for municipal water supplies. We started in water tanks about 50 years ago, just painting storage tanks, doing inspections, things of that nature, but slowly gravitated over time. We've taken on more and more tasks within water storage tanks as far as managing those for customers, adding things like mixers, making sure they're in compliance, things of that nature. And really we've evolved into a service company for the water supplies from basically production throughout the distribution. So we've been around for a long time. You might be wondering a little bit who else we do business with in the area. We are based out of Georgia, but we have several customers in Missouri. Actually, Missouri is one of our bigger states for the company. Just in your backyard, we do manage some tanks for St. Genevieve, several tanks down in Jackson, Herculaneum, and many of the water districts in Jefferson County. So got a pretty good base here, a good reputation. Just wanted to throw that out there. Did anybody have any questions or concerns from me as far as our company or reputation or anything like that? All right, great. Well, I thought we'd go through the proposal. Some of you may see it. I know I've given this to Dennis already. So I thought we'd just go through this, kind of look at the highlights and then go into detail on kind of what, what we're proposing. But, before we get into the detail of the proposal itself, kind of wanted to give you a little background on how I got together with Dennis. I ran into Dennis at the Missouri Water and Wastewater Conference a few weeks back down in Cape. And he had actually attended one of the webinars for a water mixer that we represent. And so I started a discussion with Dennis, and he had mentioned that he had some concerns with the water quality on this tank. He had some low turnover. One of the biggest reasons you guys had the tank was for fire protection and to maintain system pressure. But there was some issues with getting turnover in the tank, which caused him to have some concerns on the water quality. And he was also concerned about the condition of the interior coatings itself. Is that pretty accurate, Dennis?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. So that's kind of how we got here today. So I came out, we talked a little bit further. Actually, my predecessor, before I came on board, actually did an inspection of the tank back in 2012. So we had some pictures to reference, and indeed there was some concerns with the interior coatings, and certainly with the water quality inside the tank. So Dennis basically asked me, hey, can you come up with a solution to renovate the interior of this tank and add a mixing solution to solve these problems with the water quality. So if you go to page 4 of the proposal, that starts a couple of photos. And we had a few more photos, but this kind of encapsulates, the principle we're looking at. But you can see photos 1 and 2, where there is some corrosion at the top of the tank, which is most common, and it's creating some staining going down the tank and actually getting into your water supply. So there's some concerns with some basically corrosion, rust, and dirt getting down into the water. And you can see it in photo 2 as well. And then photo 3, you can see some heavy staining on the outside of the tank walls, which can lead to a breakdown of that coating. So there's definitely concerns with the coating and a need to recoat the interior. The other concern, that the second part of that was the water quality itself. On the top of the tank, you can see, some concerns with biofilm on the top of the water. What that basically comes from is what we call stratification in a storage tank. So the water at the top, because the sun hits the top of the tank, heats up that head space of the tank and warms up that water on the top. And warm water will likely stay at the top because there's a kind of inlet and outlet on that tank. Basically, last in, first out. The cold water at the bottom is what's going to come out. The warm water at the top stays there. Your chlorine residuals off gas, and it promotes biofilm, and you get this nasty water on top. A lot of times it may not show up in your representative samples because it stays up there, but with seasonal variations in temperatures, that tank can flip, and all that nasty water from the top gets in the bottom. You may get a rush of complaints from your customers, with bad water and water supply. So that was the second component that we wanted to look at. So the two reasons basically why I'm here and why we're talking about these renovations on the tank. So if we go back to page 2, after the cover page there, kind of gives our proposed solution. So interior renovation, I put a little detail on here, but it is pretty straightforward. For the best surface finish on the interior, we would blast that tank. The old industry term, go ahead.
The epoxy thin for 10% striping, it doesn't specify the coating, it just, or the paint. Have we had experience in the past with the coating, as how far does it last, and when it usually breaks down?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dennis. Usually, and to kind of highlight what he was talking about on that stripe coating, the first part to break down is your weld seams and your roof beams. So when we coat the tank, we would put extra coat of paint on there because those are the first ones to break down. But to get down further in your question, what we typically like to see as far as a coating life is around 10 years. A lot of times we'll get more than that. More than 10 years. Kind of all depends on the airflow going into the tank, and how well you inspect and maintain your tank. So, if you're inspecting it and touching up those spots as needed, you're going to get more life to your interior coating. Does that make sense? Gotcha.
Thank you, sir.
Good. So, any other questions on that before I move forward? Okay. So, basically get the best surface prep on the interior of the tank, we would blast that. The old industry term was sandblast. These days there's different abrasives they use, so they call it abrasive blast. But we try to get the most paint, debris, anything off that interior. We want to take advantage of the fact that it's enclosed, so we don't have to worry about containment and blasting material getting everywhere.
I hate to interrupt you.
Sure, go ahead.
When you're sandblasting, okay, the grit and everything else from the sandblasting, what protection do we have from the surrounding customers and the highway when vehicles going by when they're doing the sandblasting?
Well, on the interior, it's pretty enclosed. The only thing that can get out is the vent. So we would contain any of that as much as we can. We do have to have some airflow because our guys obviously need the air inside the tank.
Right.
So we would contain that as much as possible. That's usually never an issue as far as interiors. The only time it really becomes an issue is on exteriors, and then if we have to use containment, that's a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
So on interiors, we try to take advantage of that enclosure, blast, get the best anchor profile is what we call it on the sides of the tank with the best finish. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
So we would blast and we would put a base coat, epoxy primer on the interior, and then we would come back with a finish coat. The target is to get at least 9 mils, but typically up to that 10 or 12 mil thickness, which is industry standard. So one thing I'll add here is, we've been in the business for a long time. The paint company we use is pretty predominantly, for the most part, is Tanemic. They're a very industry known name as far as tank paint. So we use a lot of theirs and we partner with those, and we've been using them for such a long time, we've really become experts in coatings. So we work to try to get the best coating. We have a good reputation out there and we want to maintain that. So we do a great job on interior coatings, both inside and out. So basically we would allow the appropriate cure time for that paint, make sure that it does cure properly before we put it in service, and then we would sanitize and put that tank back in service. Go ahead.
So so I can maintain fire flows. I didn't see any provision for a temporary tank to be used and keep fire flows in town.
Well, we didn't include a temporary tank. We can, that's typically an auxiliary activity. We would try to, you know, balance your flows. I mean, if you can try to live without the tank for a little while. If you can't, we can work with you either to, you know, we can use pressure relief valves
Well,
if
we're
you don't
fine.
need the storage.
We're fine during normal operations, okay?
Gotcha.
But if they were to have a fire in town or something like that, that would be severely restricted, because that's the reason we got that tank.
Right.
is that. So I wouldn't need to use it every day on everyday operations, but if they had a fire in town, we will have to maintain fire flow for the fire department. And
Right.
I would have to have a tank ready to be used in that case.
Well, typically what we have available is a pressure style tank. It's mostly, I mean, it's gonna have minimal volume, it's mostly geared to maintain pressure. As far as volumes, do you guys have any kind of tie-ins with neighboring communities for water?
No,
Okay,
but I don't think the flow is the problem, this is more or less the pressures. I don't want the pressures going below. That's my concern.
right,
I think that's mainly what we got. We have plenty of storage, 203,600 gallons in that tank up there. I mean, we got plenty for that.
gotcha.
So the volume of water is not my problem. My problem is pressure. So if we can have something temporarily to set up so that we can maintain fire flow pressure, that's my concern.
Gotcha.
We have a well that we just put in service.
It's not a service yet.
It's not yet.
It's not set up for that yet. No, I have to dig the whole backyard up yet. I haven't done that yet, so.
But do you know when that would be available?
Not really, not at this point.
Okay. Because, I mean, we could supply the pressure tank. It is another expense. If you could live without it, it would save you a little bit of money, but worst case, we could provide that as an option.
Well, I want that as an attendant. We may not use it, but I want it as an attendant to the.
Okay,
Okay?
gotcha.
We may not, like I said, we may not need it, we may not use it, but I want it as an attendant to the contract.
Okay.
Well,
Okay?
it's an expense and it's going on.
Well, we haven't voted on anything yet. I'm just saying, I want it as an attendant on the contract, okay? I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but I do have to protect my citizens,
Sure.
okay? That's all.
Since I guess it's all right to mention this, he's discussing things, and he may have addressed this, but I'm not sure if it's in the same way. When you're working on this tank, will it reduce any flow to the residents or businesses in this tank? It will not?
No, it will not.
Okay.
We've proven that. The only thing it affects is fire flow. And that's the reason we got it, is for fire flow. But as far as pressures, normal usage, no, we don't have any water.
There are businesses up there.
Right, everything will be fine.
Right. Yeah, and so, and to clarify, I mean, we're probably looking at somewhere 2-3 weeks max, probably downtime on the tank. You know, a good, couple days to clean it out, get it ready, blast it, and then after it's done, it's about a week cure time. So about a week to 10 days worth of work and then 7 days cure time.
And there may be a fire in between there. That's what
Sure.
I'm concerned about.
Yeah, that's it.
Especially with the warmer months coming up, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, yeah. Anyway, go ahead, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, just go ahead.
Yeah, no, these are all great questions. So those are things you guys need to think about when you take a tank out of service. There's no doubt about that. So we can look at options for the pressure tank.
Thank you.
So any other questions on the interior before I move to the mixer? Okay. All right. So as far as the mixer is concerned, so the target here is to go after that biofilm at the top. The renovation in and of itself will create a better environment in the tank and will help reduce some of that biofilm. But really, your Achilles heel here is the fact that the water doesn't move. It's for fire flow and kind of an overflow situation. So you're not turning the tank over near as much. And so that's kind of an enemy to you guys. It's kind of like you go to a convenience store and guy stocks the shelves and he never rotates the inventory, and every once in a while you get one of those bad coats, you know? So the goal is to eliminate that situation. So there are things you can do to help eliminate that. You actually have somewhat of a mixing system in the Elm Street tank, but we're going to look at something a little bit different, but just to kind of give you an illustration of what I'm talking about. The objective is to keep water moving in the tank and displace that stratification. And I've printed out paper, it doesn't do the best justice, but I think you can probably see it. But I've shown a couple arrows there, but the Elm Street tank has what you call an extended fill line. So when the water comes up, because it comes out of the bottom, it raises up a little bit higher to try to get some of that water towards the top. And it does do a little bit of mixing for you. But typically what happens is it goes in, and it only mixes when it fills, and then if that stratification's there, because you guys have pumped well water, right? So well water is typically, 60 degrees, and in the summer that water at the top might be 80, so it's going to come up, and then it's just going to fall right back down to the bottom. So it does give you a little mixing, but you can see the water in this tank is quite a bit better, but it does have a little bit of biofilm on the top. So it doesn't totally mix the tank. So what we're looking at is something to keep the water in that tank moving all the time. And what that does for you is that, one, the movement in of itself keeps the bacteria from binding together and creating that biofilm on the top. But the other thing it does for you is by keeping that new and old water mixed, your chlorine coming in the tank stays consistent throughout the tank, and it keeps that biofilm from growing. And the other thing that happens when that water stratifies, the warm water goes to the top, cold water goes to the bottom, chlorine off gases at the top, biofilm grows. So now the other enemy you got, Dennis will relate to this, is disinfection byproducts. That chlorine coming in from the bottom hits that biofilm at the top and then creates what we call a DPV, or a disinfection byproduct, like a THM.
Trial that lines and
Right.
acidic acids.
Right, so those are enemies. Now, you're on well water, so probably still not a big issue for you, but you guys don't want to get into an issue with that. So by keeping that water moving, you're going to, prevent that biofilm from forming. Really, at the end of the day, the benefit is you're going to get better water to your customers.
And the other thing that I'd like to bring up is the fact that if you do have some kind of mixer with the water constantly moving, in the wintertime, you won't have ice built up in the top tank. Right. It won't freeze.
And with the sand pack you guys got, when you get colder weather, you're a little bit more prone because you got more surface area on your water. So that mixer would pretty much, I can't promise it would eliminate ice, but it pretty much will. So that will eliminate that concern there. I did attach in the back, for sake of time, I don't want to get into detail because I covered the high points of it, but there's a data sheet on the mixer, and there's also a case study that targets specifically stand pipes like yours. Because it is difficult to mix the tall skinny tanks. So in this situation, the mixer has got a special impeller in it that it creates like a tornado. So it creates a vortex going up and it curls around and then comes down to the bottom. It just does that over and over again. It keeps that water mixed. So, like I mentioned, at the end of the day, keeping those residuals in there will keep that biofilm down. By renovating that interior, you'll keep a nice clean surface, keep that biofilm from going on there, and really give you better water to your customers. The way we did the pricing on this was what we would call a contract for services, to kind of help with that pill to swallow that big expense of renovating the tank and the mixer. So we did a 3-year term. We spread the cost over 3 years. We're probably one of the only companies that can do that. But we spread the cost over 3 years, make it a little bit easier for you guys to pay that. And then as part of that, to see you through those 3 years, in year 2, we had included a tank inspection, a visual. So we'd come out, take a look, make sure everything's still good on the tank. That first year, we have the industry standard 1-year warranty on the tank. So if anything's wrong with that coating, we would find it in that 1-year inspection, we fix it. I'm assuming there's not going to be issues with that based on the track record, but we would do that. And then in the final year of the contract, we would include a washout inspection. So we'd come back in, we'd drain the tank, wash it out real good, inspection, and you guys would get detailed reports on both of those occasions. So when we hand over the reins to you in year 3, you know you got a good tank. Any
And then
questions?
you're finished then? Then you're with your, you don't come back and check it anymore after that?
We can. We have, well, Dennis and I talked about this too, because we wanted to look at the immediate needs of this tank was the interior and the mixer. We do have what's called a tank maintenance program, where we could tank on that tank and manage it for you. So what that includes is we would do the renovation cost just like what's included in this proposal, but on top of that, there would be an annual fee. And for that annual fee, you pay that, we would manage that tank for as long as you're in the program. That would cover any kind of emergency repairs, touch-ups, and then any future coatings. So in year 10, when the interior coating would fail, then we would take that on as part of that program. And that's something that whether you would be interested in doing that now or a year from now, we could still do that. So it wouldn't necessarily affect this program either. So in year 2, you came back and said, hey, we would like to go into this program, and then we want to renovate the exterior of the tank next year, then we could look at that, extending that out.
Can you come up with something, if we went that way, how much would it cost us a year to have that?
I would have to get you official pricing, but you're probably looking somewhere in the neighborhood, because the exterior is probably going to need to be renovated sometime in the next 3 years. So you're probably looking at an extra probably $30,000 to renovate the exterior, and we could spread that cost too. And so we could just lump it all together, and then your annual fee at the end of that, what we would call that upfront renovation, that 3-year spread, your annual fee I would say is probably going to be somewhere in the $8,000 to $10,000 range.
I must have misunderstood something. I thought it was kind of like an extended warranty, like what you kind of paying, take it over so much a year, and now you're talking about more money. I missed something there, it's not making sense to me.
Well, right now we're just doing the interior renovation, right? So at some point in time, the exterior renovation is going to be done. So just starting on a clean slate to make it simple, if we did both the interior and exterior renovation today, so if we started off on a clean slate today, let's say, instead of $20,000 a year, that turned out to be $30,000 a year to do the whole tank, start off from scratch. And then the annual fee for what we would call the maintenance plan, or maybe you could term it as the extended warranty, would be in that $8,000 to $10,000 range. And then for paying that fee, we basically take responsibility for that tank for infinity as long as you're in the program. Yeah. So that's what Jackson does that, St. Genevieve does that as well. So they pay us, after that upfront renovation's done, they just pay us an annual fee now. And so as long as they're in the program, we take care of that tank for them. And we inspect it every year and wash it out every other year. I mean, is that something you guys would be interested in looking at in lieu of this, or something you want to be interested in down the road? Or?
I think we will have to discuss that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be something that we'll need to discuss.
And that, like I said, that's something that you don't have to make a decision on today. We could still move forward with the proposal as it states, and then put an addendum on to put the tank in the program later. I mean, because either way, the interior is going to be renovated on either program. We would just, if we would go into the maintenance program later, we would just exclude that cost that we already incurred per se on the interior. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
Alderman Bowley was asking about what do you call it, the other tank, something from firefighters in case of something like that. What extra expense is that for us? Because you said that's an extra expense.
Right. It typically falls in the range of about $6,500 for that tank. And
The
it's
period of time that it sits up there.
right.
And that's it. A couple of weeks or whatever.
And essentially what it does is it looks like a semi-tanker. And actually that pretty much is what it is. Semi-tanker, but it just holds pressure in the line and a little bit of water. So it's pre-charged with pressure, so this makes sure that you've always got that pressure for fire flow. Doesn't give you a whole lot of volume, that's what I wanted to clarify, is it doesn't give you a whole lot of volume as far as storage capacity, but it will help you hold that pressure in that line. I don't know if any of you guys got wells in homes and got little bladder tanks on your well. Does It's essentially what it is on steroids. Just a big semi-trailer, it's holding pressure in it.
Pressure bladder.
Yeah.
I got you, Tom. Thanks, Ted.
So, any other questions as far as the program? So as far as moving forward, I mean, do we need to addend this? I mean, I do have copies of the contract tonight. If you guys wanted to review them as is, or if I need to addend that, I can redo that.
You redo that, and then, because I think the board is gonna have to discuss this whole project.
Yes, for sure.
It's not
Okay.
something that we're gonna make a decision on tonight.
Okay.
I will get back with you, Ted, as soon as we come up with something, okay?
Okay.
But, I really appreciate your time coming for me and help me explain this stuff, so.
Yeah, no
I really
problem.
appreciate that.
And I staple business cards to all the proposals too, so if you guys think of any questions, you know, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever is more convenient for you. But I can send over an addended price for that pressure tank, and I'll just wait to see how you guys want to move forward.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, Doug.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent
I second it.
All in favor?
agenda.
All right.
We need to, I have a discussion, I have something I want to say about the consent agenda, so we don't know if there are errors in the minutes from last month. And,
Did you call David and tell him?
I've talked to him before about them.
Did you call him and tell him?
I did call you at one time about something on here. But anyway, I'm just gonna, there's some errors in it. I went back and looked it over and,
What are the errors?
okay. With the public forum, I read the letter from the resident regarding water flow and soil erosion, and they're left out the part of damaging the resident's property. Otherwise, it's very vague, so I'd like the record to show that that was, and that I had also asked for discussion and I was refused discussion. So the record needs to show that the discussion was refused.
I like the way we went through
You got to read the letter, I didn't know that.
And I asked for us to discuss it or to plan something, and it was ignored, and we moved on, and I was not allowed to. We're not allowed
Votes
to
on the
make any
floor for
plans.
the agenda, let's move on.
Okay,
Consent agenda is set.
You know
okay.
what? Point of order here.
All in
Who
favor?
got the floor? You have to keep the floor.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the mail, oral, here. You
that.
have it.
Declaration, yes, I do.
Declaration against all.
Okay. Whereas the Masonic Home of Missouri, dedicated on June 15, 1889, has for 125 years upheld the principles of brotherhood and charity, and whereas the Masonic Home of Missouri is a non-profit charitable organization and provides assistance to eligible master masons, their wives, honored widows, female members of the Order of the Eastern Star, and children in need throughout the state of Missouri. And whereas our community of St. Mary, Missouri has a Masonic Lodge, Saline Lodge number 226, whose members contribute to the well-being and quality of life for all citizens of the community through their own efforts in support of the Masonic Home of Missouri's outreach programs. And now therefore, I, Brenda Franklin, Mayor, do hereby proclaim June 14, 2014 as Masonic Home of Missouri Day throughout St. Mary, Missouri, and encourage all our citizens to recognize the Masonic Home of Missouri and Saline Lodge number 226 for the impact that they have made and continue to make in our community.
Okay. Okay, we had some, is it one or two trees at the cemetery
There's two.
that we were afraid were gonna fall down and hit some, stones, so we, got some bids, and we're not gonna have to, well, we sent a letter out to people that either have family or plots in the cemetery, and we have gotten donations to take care of these trees. So we've got 3 bids here. One of them is from Rick's Tree Service, and it's for $475. And it says here that they will remove, what does that say, removal of cedar tree.
They're gonna, Dennis has more specific, he worked with them, at the sign.
What they're gonna do is remove the cedar tree and the pecan tree that's there. They're gonna just cut it down. The city workers are gonna cut it up and get rid of it.
So they're just gonna
They're
cut,
just falling, is what they're.
okay, that's for $475. And this was for, well, this doesn't make any sense.
I know, I just quote this one, I don't know what that is.
And who is this from?
Bill Fisher.
Okay, this is for $375 to cut the 2 trees down. And then this one is from Gary Mall. And this is for $500. So it's basically all the same thing, they're all just gonna cut them down and leave it there for the city workers to, they're just gonna cut them down, and the city workers are gonna cut it up and take care of it. So we got 3 bids here, so we need to,
Who's this second one from?
the second one was from
Rick?
Bill Fisher. And his was the cheapest for $375.
Bill Fisher?
Excuse me?
Is it Bill Fisher?
That's what it says on the return address. He's from Bloomsdale, it says.
I didn't cut two trees down. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Would you repeat the rest of this one?
Okay, the Gary Ball one was for $500, and Rick's Tree Service was for $475.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I'm very familiar with Rick Street.
Okay,
Good, that's all we got.
okay.
And he seems to have, not the lower bid, but I know his work.
Well,
Recommend.
I know we have enough donations that will pay for any of these, you know. So, I mean, whatever you guys feel most comfortable with, because actually I don't know any of these people, so.
Well, I know Rick, I like peanuts. Rick cut a tree down in my yard.
So that's just a decision you guys need to make. I mean, what one you want to go with.
I'm not the only one on the board, so.
So if you guys want to go with Rick's Tree Service because they are out of St. Mary's, I mean, that's,
I'd like to keep it local myself. Really.
You need a motion for
yes.
that? I make a motion to get Rick Street Service.
I second it.
All in favor?
I'm
Opposed? Okay, well, I'll go with that. So we're going to go with Rick's Tree Service. Okay, on the trees?
Yeah. No offense, but we got loans and stuff going on. And I know there's projects to go on too. Is there any possible way that they can delay taking these trees down, like, towards the end of summer here? Or,
We gotta go according to whatever schedule they got.
I mean,
Well, we could, I guess when we call them, we could ask them when,
because what I'm trying to get at is I don't want them to get the trees down.
and
We're
then
trying
you
to
guys won't
mow
be able to
and
get.
we're trying to do other things and we can't get to it.
Right. Yeah, I understand
Also,
what you're saying.
will the trees actually, I know we've had wind problems,
Yeah.
that's another thing that
So
might be
that-
an
The
issue.
only one I'm worried about is cedar tree with wind problem. The other, persimmon tree, I mean, it's got some good life to it, so, I mean, it's rotted inside a little bit, but not, I mean, I'd take the cedar tree over that.
Yeah, I know, because it was bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I was just asking, I mean, it don't matter to me what you guys decide to do, it's just, I'm looking out.
We were just worried about that
Yeah.
cedar tree falling, so. I don't know if that'll be something we need to find out when they can do that. Okay, departmental reports, emergency management.
Mayor Franklin asked me to take a class. She got a letter from the, State Emergency Management Agency, suggesting that I take, the fundamentals of emergency management. It's an online class. I did take that class. I passed the test, got the certificate, so, I've got that.
Congratulations.
I also want to announce that there is going to be community emergency response team training specifically for residents of St. Mary. The dates of this class will be July 8th and July 9th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and July 11th from 9 a.m. to noon. That'll be the exercise. And this class will be held at the health department in their basement conference area. So anybody interested in that, you can contact the health department or let me know. I will contact them for you. And then next month, I'll be going to take the tools of floodplain management to start working on my floodplain credits and knowledge in that area. We'll go back to that.
Thank you. Okay, water and sewer report.
Yes, ma'am. Chlorine residuals are good, and all of that T submitted were good. I had Missouri Rural Water come down here to help me determine the leak. I wanted to determine if the leak existed on 8th and Spruce. The street is sinking in, and I thought a leak was washing out the dirt underneath the street. However, we did not find no leak. He brought his correlator and his leak detector, and we used both equipment to determine if there was a leak that could wash out underneath. We received our leak detector, but it'll be a little bit to get used to because of the sensitive sensor picks up other sounds, which we have to learn to filter out. So, I mean, we can do it, but it just gonna take a while to learn how to filter all those outside sounds out. He already talked to you about the standpipe on Highway 61, so we did, last month, we did overflow the standpipes and clean out the screens to make sure that there was nothing in the overflows that could cause any problems. We cleaned them all out, took the screens off, cleaned them in, and there wasn't much material in them, according to what my worker said. E-coli tests on the effluent have been good. Our UV lights are doing great and have cleaned the bowls twice since they've been installed. So we're having good returns on that. We've had several service calls, mostly floats gone bad, which we've replaced. The generator's been working as scheduled. At the time of need, we shouldn't anticipate any problems with it. It's going off like it should. We received our draft notice for our new permit to discharge. I have reviewed it, and we should not have any problems with compliance. And if anybody wants to look at it, we have the basics posted on the bulletin board, and you can go to DNR's website and see the whole thing if you'd like to. Going to be reviewed for 30 days. After 30 days, if there's no comments or anything, then we'll get our final discharge. That's all I have, Mayor. I give the floor back to you.
Okay. Park and cemetery report, Dennis?
Oh, yeah. Again, they mowed the park last week, and it didn't look that bad, and they did 95% of the cemetery today. And they mowed up all the dead dogs and stuff, so it looks good. The only parts they didn't get is the far back new part and everything. So other than that, they did an excellent job.
Street department?
The one thing I had was ordered some new street signs, stop signs, and they're gonna be in the process of getting it up as soon as they can. Which probably won't take them very long. That's all I have.
Fire department, Gloria?
I want to ask you a question. You remember when they people there that's gonna put that concrete for emergency helicopter landing. Whatever happened about that?
Well, we've been talking about,
Drop that back.
we've been talking about trying to get set up to get that done. That, Bill Frankie and I come and talk about it a little bit, just haven't had a good chance to actually catch up with one another here lately.
We're gonna try to get air back, to come back in with the chopper and have one of their representatives come in and tell us what size we need, how thick we need it, what kind of lights and stuff we need, and where the best place to set that chopper down on a regular basis.
That way then it'll be set up, they won't have any discrepancies with where we actually place it. We placed it in a bad spot and they can't even land there. That would need to be worth our time.
You're absolutely right there. But I just wondered what was going on with it, you know, because I think it's a very good idea.
See, basically, we turned around, we had them do this when Joe was chief, which, you know, we took over and stuff, but we was wanting a new landing zone somewhere else, because if we have a wreck down here, really bad emergency, something like Maryville, we can land in Maryville still. But if we got something on the highway, we need something closer. Plus, the other thing is this year, they're taking out the alfalfa out of the field up by the firehouse. That's one of our landing zones. But they're gonna put me in the corner, so we ain't gonna have a landing spot, so that's the reason why we went to the secondary. And we're wanting to actually put a concrete helipad in for them, because one, we got an emergency, two, we ain't got to sit there and spot them, except for block off the driveway so nobody can get in. And then the other thing, if they got to do emergency landing, they know they got a spot there, they can put her down.
Well, thank you, I just was wondering what was going on with it.
Is that something you need to drop before the board?
No, it's the fire department.
Fire department.
The main people.
Okay, you don't have a report though?
I wasn't able to get my report yet. We actually had 3 calls. We had 1 EMS and 2 mutual aid calls. And also we got our generator in and got it, or generator light I should say, also. Got it in and tried it out and it works really good. We like it.
Good deal.
Yeah, an asset, gonna be something neat to have. You can pull sucker out and just set it down anywhere, instant light. And also we can use power off of it. The power is Sawzall or something like that if we were in a wreck or something like that.
So that'll be a big help.
You know.
Okay, is that it? Okay, police department?
No recording, just kind of what's marked.
Do you have any?
I have nothing.
Okay. Animal control?
They haven't seen none.
Yeah, everything
There was one
okay?
there the other day and I forgot to took it up.
Good. Okay, citizens participation. Does anybody have anything to say? Okay, then I guess we need to go into closed session. So I need a motion.
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Opposed?
You gotta go roll call.
Oh, I forgot.
Alderman Dennis O'Hagan. Alderman Diana Smith.
Me.
Alderman Gloria Baker.
I
Alderman Todd Costello.
Aye.
You could go through it when the water was high. Low.
No.
We're all consensus. We're all agreed.
Percentage are all agreed, so that's fine.
Okay, I need a motion to
Make
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You gotta be third with them two. I make it 9 seconds, I make it 9 seconds. Come out.
Channel 7 and 98 TV and web broadcasting are made possible through contributions and donations from viewers like you. Thank you for your support.